Hey guys, Washington here, and today I am going to be talking to you about Colling's Painters on Impressionism. He did a documentary and that mainly focuses on four guys that brought us Impressionism. He talks about Courbet, Manet, Cezane, and Monet. He gives us a quote by stating that Impressionism is the first movement of modern art. He describes Courbet first, in which he describes him as being a individual that likes the realistic style. So in a sense, he likes the landscape structures and other paintings that actually show the truth, which the government at France during that time did not like that. So the Sultan didn't really like his paintings, and he wanted change. And although he did want to bring down the government, in 1848, when the first commune was done, he didn't participate in it. 3,000 people were lost. But in 1858, the emperor invites him over, and he does a painting, and it's called After Pavilion of the Real, in which they more or less liked the way he painted, and he started being less of a socialist and more of a sensationalist. That's what they described. They even said that, he stated, paint the truth, paint your own time from your own point of view. But in 1871, when the Paris Commune occurred again, and 30,000 people lost their lives, he was still, in a sense, blamed for it. So when it was brought under control, he was still prosecuted twice. They sent him once to jail, and then the second time they were making him pay a monetary fee, but he knew it would make him go broke, so he fled to Switzerland, and that's where he stayed till the age of 58, where he died of alcoholism. And Colling's address is more or less about Courbet, about the rough surfaces, and Courbet being about for the truth and against the lies. He then takes us to Manet. Manet was more into the whole color thing. He was about combining colors. And as Courbet, Manet also had difficulty with the solemn, which also refused his paintings. He does a couple of paintings, like the picnic painting, the picture of Olympia, which at first it was thought that it was a prostitute, but in reality it wasn't. It was Victorine, one of his models during the 1860s. And with Manet, he ended up much later on in 1878 getting a nervous disorder. He even went as far as to get experimental treatment, and he ended up getting gangrene, which they cut one of his legs off, and in 1883 he died. Our main guy is Monet, and he was born in 1840. What we know about him is that he loved drawing characters, which he would end up selling them to actually buy cheap classes of art. So one of the things that he did early on was mismanage his money. He really didn't know how to really take care of it. So in 1871, he more or less was married to Camille and had his son John. He sold his paintings in 1872, at which point that he would sell, I think he started with 10 paintings at first, and then every so often he would sell them to the same person that would buy them. And these were his more or less downtimes, because he didn't know how to take care of his money. So it's as quickly as he got it, he would lose it. But in 1874, when there was the economic depression, Alice O'Shea more or less moved in with them in a small village. But when his wife died, Alice O'Shea and Monet lived together along with all their kids. It was around 6 kids that she had. And during the 1880s, he became a millionaire because of the explosion of the American popularity with his paintings. A lot of the times is during the 1910s, 1920s that like his paintings were taken for decoration. We know that Monet died around the year 1926. And even to this day, that he's very big in. They said that he was one of the most popular artists in the world. And for our last guy, we got Cezane. This guy was afraid of women. He was really negative. His father controlled him. His early on paintings were about murder scenes. He was from South France, hated his family. He had an affair in 1869 with a woman, which he ended up getting pregnant. He ended up having a son, but he hid the woman and her son from his father because he was afraid that they would cut him off from his allowance. It was only later on when his father had an affair that they briefly increased his allowance. So once his father died, he more or less brought in the woman and the son to live with them, and then they didn't get along with the mother and his sister. And then what we know of Cezane is that he dies alone in 1906, and more or less his paintings are set up to be anxious and restless.